Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boy Speakerhead, and welcome back to another video. Back when I was a small child playing with my animated Soundwave, I was also watching all of the live action movies that were coming out at the time. I will say the first one is my personal favorite, but I really did enjoy the rest of the movies. So when I got back into collecting Transformers a couple years ago, if there was any Studio Series figure from a movie I liked, I wanted to pick that up if I could. I also saw that a lot of you guys enjoyed my video on how to pose your Transformers like a pro, so I wanted to make a follow-up to that video. And thanks to the comment of this individual, I decided to make this video. But before we get into the video real quick, I want to let you guys know if you enjoy any of the music in this video, make sure to check it out. It's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. Like I said, all the music on this label is completely royalty free, so go ahead and use it for any of your content creating needs. Also, if you ever want to catch me live, I do stream over at Speakerhead Live on YouTube. Finally, I do want to mention, if you guys do enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. What's going on, everybody? Speakerhead from the future here, because as usual, I forgot to add some stuff. So the first thing I want to mention, I want to give a huge shout out to Deluxe Baldwin for having me on his channel for a Transformer talk, because that was fantastic and I loved it. So thank you very much, Deluxe, for having me on. I appreciate it. Also, if you guys go check out his channel if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. He's such a fantastic guy, so if you could go check out that beautiful Bearded Man's content, please do. I really appreciate it. The last thing I did want to mention, because I didn't mention it anywhere in the video, is that Studio Series figures have some beautiful looking alt modes, so I highly recommend putting them in their alt modes on occasion. The live action Studio Series figures are some of the few figures I really like to enjoy keeping in their vehicle mode, so I highly recommend those as one of the poses you have for your vehicles, even if it's on occasion. But anyways, that's enough out of me, so let's get back to the video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the posing. When it comes to my Studio Series figures, I am fairly limited because I did start collecting after the Studio Series started. So when it comes to my Studio Series collection, it is fairly smaller than all my other collections. My collection is fairly small, but with these few figures, I want to try to help you guys pose your figures as best as you can. So the first pose is just going to be your regular stance. All you gotta do is slightly bend the elbows and turn the arms inwards. Then after that, slightly pivot the feet outwards in opposite directions. Then you can also turn the head left or right to give it a little bit more attitude. But other than that, that's one basic stance you guys can do for your figures if you don't want to do anything crazy. So now moving on to the other stances, each one of these is mainly going to be focused on each figure. You can do it with a lot of these other figures, but the ones that I'm using are mainly focused on these. And like I said, I apologize for the lack of Studio Series figures, so if I get more in the future, I can make a follow-up video. So the next pose we're going to be doing is with Studio Series Dark of the Moon Soundwave. So when you have your figure in its base position, you want to bring one leg forward and bend the knees so that way the foot is flat. Then with that other leg, you want to very slightly bring it back and then bend the knees so that way the toe is touching the ground. So then he should be in a position similar to this. Next, you want to bring one of the arms in and bring it up so that way this little silver piece is flat, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. After that, you want to take the opposite arm and bend the elbow and bring the arm slightly forward. However, if you're doing this reverse of how I'm doing it, then you want to actually bring the arm back because that's a more natural position. Then finally, you want to rotate the head opposite of the arm that you brought upwards. And then finally, if you are using this sound wave, you want to put your little laser beak on that flat little piece I pointed out earlier. But there you have a nice walking pose for your Studio Series Soundwave figure. I will be honest, this figure is pretty difficult to get in some decent poses with its very limited articulation, but this is probably one of the best poses I could get it in. But now let's move on to our next pose. So the next figure we're going to be doing a pose with is going to be the Studio Series Side Swipe. So once you got your figure in its base position, you want to bring one of the legs forward and bring that ankle all the way down so it's flat. You may need to do some adjustments to the toe and heel of the foot so it's stable. Next, you want to bring that other leg and bring it all the way back, and then bring that ankle all the way forward so the foot is flat. But once again, adjust the heel and toe if you need to. So then your figure should look something like this. Next, you want to slightly spread the legs apart so they're very slightly angled. Once again, you might need to do some adjusting on the heels and toes so that way it's stable. Next, you want to rotate the chest towards whichever leg you brought forward. Next, you want to bring his arm up into the side so he's pointing his blaster. After that, you want to adjust the head and turn it towards the way that the blaster is facing. Then with the opposite arm, you want to bend the elbow and bring that back. Then finally do any minor adjustments you need to, but there you go with a nice pose for your Studio Series Side Swipe. Now I know many of you are going to want to pose him using his signature blade, so I also came up with a pose for that. So what you want to do is you want to take the pose that I just showed you and add those blades onto his arms. Then you want to take that arm that was pointing the blaster outwards and bring that all the way down to the ground so it's touching. And then take that arm that was back and bring that out slightly more. And then finally adjust the head to any position you'd like. But there you have a nice pose for your Studio Series side swipe, so he's using his signature blades. So the next figure we're going to be doing a pose with is going to be Studio Series Sideways, which is kind of fitting because I really enjoyed the scene where Sideways got cut in half by Sideswipe. But to get into the pose, once you have the figure in a base stance, you want to bring the arm up and rotate the forearm 90 degrees. You might also want to do a little bend in the elbow, but you may need to do some adjustments later on. Next, you're going to want to rotate the torso in the direction of the lowered arm. You got to make sure to do this first because you won't be able to move the legs into the proper position without doing so first. Next, you're going to want to bring the leg on the side of the lowered arm forward and bend that knee. I realize this while taking photos, but you can keep them in this cool guy walk pose if you'd like. But seriously now, the next thing you want to do is bring that opposite leg you haven't moved yet all the way back and try to position it into a nice position so the figure is somewhat stable. Then you want to adjust the legs and rotate them slightly outwards. And this is where that raised arm is going to come into play because you want to use that to actually have the figure hold itself up on. So it'll somewhat be acting like a tripod. After that, the figure should be somewhat in this position. Then you want to rotate the head towards the outward arm and raise it upwards. Then you're going to want to take that lowered arm and bring it upward. Finally, you want to bend at the elbow and bring the hand up. And there you have a nice cool position for your sideways figure using his big lanky arms. Now the final pose I want to talk about is going to be for Studio Series Grindor or Blackout, whichever one you have. First decide which arm you want to keep his weapon on. Then take the leg of whichever side the weapon is on and bring that up 2 clicks. You may need to move the crotch plate a bit out of the way in order to get both clicks. And then you want to pivot that leg outward 1 click. With the opposite leg, you want to bring that back 1 click and bring it outwards 1 click. Then you want to take whichever arm has the weapon and bring that outwards towards the figure's chest. You also want to close the hand into a fist on whichever arm the weapon is on. Next, you want to bring that opposite arm outwards and slightly de-transform the figure. Mine doesn't tab in very well anyway, so I like to use it as a butterfly joint. Next, you want to rotate the head towards the direction of the outward arm. Then finally do some slight adjusting so that way the blade isn't in the way of the figure's head. And there you have a nice pose for your Studio Series Blackout or Grindor. One final bonus tip that isn't really for posing, but it's really nice to have with these figures is that if you can get your hands on any of the old Call of Duty Mega Bloks figures, those work fantastic with your Studio Series figures. Like, I love posing them with these guys. But with that, that's going to be all our poses for our Studio Series figures. I will admit it was kind of difficult to get some of these guys into some poses with their very limited articulation, but I hope that these poses helped you out a bit. But if these poses did help you out, make sure to like and subscribe because it really does help me out. And finally, once again, if you guys enjoyed any of the music in this video, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, link in the description below. But that's going to be it for me, guys, so I'll catch everyone in the next one. Peace!